G'day mates, it's the Doctor here. There's been numerous controversies with our little tank engine, hasn't there? From the pilot episode in 1953, to the sad story of Henry, to Henry's Forest, to crashes deemed too scary. I think I understand why Henry was booted off. He was a mail engine! I knew it! I never liked those mail engines! Always going wrong and jeopardizing public perception of his prestigious railway! Now, how exactly does a female engine sort out this problem? I have no idea. But that's enough formalities. Today, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, we're going to be tackling one of the most controversial controversies in the history of our island. It has never been done before, and I'm ecstatic to be the first. Allow me to present to you all Sodor's most divisive engine, Daisy. This is Daisy, the diesel rail car. Based on the BR Metrocamel Class 101, she was introduced in Book 16 in 1961, and in episode 19 in season 2, based on the same chapter under the same name. Funny story, I never watched the Daisy episodes in season 2. In fact, there was a lot of season 2 I never saw as a kid. But my first experience with season 2 was Pop Goes the Diesel. So later, when I watch Thomas Comes to Breakfast and hear this line at the end,
"Meanwhile, a diesel railcar will do your work."
Oh, so this is a prequel to that story. That makes so much sense because Thomas is nowhere to be spotted in that episode. Yeah, nah, that didn't turn out to be true, did it? But what's the real problem? Let's find out together. If there ever was. This character has been a subject of controversy both in-universe and the real world. Being a diesel engine, she is already frowned upon by the other engines, particularly of the steam fleet. After the first diesel made a terrible first impression, he has made steam engines hesitant of their controller, inviting more of their kind over to Sodor. But alas, the Fat controller decided to give a diesel railcar a trial, as opposed to a diesel shunter. And this is where Daisy poses a unique addition to the steam versus diesel conflict. Most diesels see themselves as superior to their steam counterparts and state outright they intend to replace them all. Daisy, however, is different. She wants the prestigious jobs and leave the dirty work to the inferior engines. There's no indication she cares about her diesel brethren, and her motivation is purely driven by self-satisfaction rather than carrying out a legacy. I find that to be a genius way of introducing another villain that is not a repeat of the first, as the more blatant diesel characters would also spell out their views on the previous generation of locomotives. To these characters, diesel and steam is night and day, fire and ice, they cannot coincide. Not such as the case with Daisy. She still sees use for her steam co-workers, but prefers them assigned to more unflattering jobs that would spoil her appearance. She wants a privilege all to herself, and for that, I find Daisy to be an excellent addition. Even after 24 seasons, she still stands out from the overwhelming 1,088 characters in the franchise. Thomas the Tank Engine over the years is often scrutinized for its lack of female representation, even though they did have Sheilas in the show as far back in season 1 with Thomas's coaches and Mrs. Kindly. Understandably, most people forget Mrs. Kindly was even a character, as she was only given one major role in the books. Daisy, however, would have plenty of leading roles. And considering the show began writing original stories starting with season 3, as well as being the first diesel to be owned by the Northwestern, and they would use their originality to expand many characters from the books, Daisy was on track to become the best female character in the series. Right?
And the first strong female engine has been added, Mavis the Diesel.
I don't think Daisy was popular, guys. We all know the metaphors to race and discrimination throughout the Railway series, which was carried over into its TV adaptation. But that's not the controversy that has shrouded this character. Daisy has been deemed offensive to the female gender, a type of caricature that was outdated even by the late 80s. Why? When Thomas the Tank Engine was brought over to America through another show called Shining Time Station, a producer of the show, Rick Sigelkow, took a disliking to the character because of the excessive makeup she wears, and that was all too much for Shining Time Station. So her absence would cause no harm to the American audience. Well, to coin a popular American phrase, what a bunch of hippy, dippy baloney. I'm not saying that wrong, it's the Americans who can't talk properly.
Tomorrow, we're gonna go to Oprah's house. It's not Oprah, it's opera. Well, like you said, they talk different here.
Daisy's negative reception sadly makes a lot of sense. She was the only character from seasons 1 and 2 who did not appear in season 3 because a man did not approve the way a woman looked. If anyone should have final say about Daisy's design, it should be the Thomas showrunner herself, Britt Allcroft. As far as I know, Britt has not shared her own opinions on Daisy, but if Britt had the power to cancel an entire episode, she would also have the power to alter character designs. Especially when you consider Daisy's Railway series design versus her television design, all those added features was a creative decision that would have required Britt's approval. Regardless, this sentiment from one man appeared to be shared by the news media, claiming Mavis was the first strong female engine with no mention of the other female engine that came before her. And I hate to say it, but I don't blame their misconception. The difference between Daisy and Mavis is Mavis's redemption is a lot more clear, and proves herself by showcasing her heroic strength to save a fellow steam engine from near disaster. Sorry Rusty, but it looks like you were not the first to rescue a fellow steamy. Daisy, on the other hand, is unclear. She gets told off by the Fat Controller, but is seen by many characters their scolding never sticks, and reverts to their arrogant, selfish, and sometimes cowardly ways. Point being, Daisy did not learn on her own. It's hard to say if she even had an arc during Season 2, but there's more to her character's design we need to talk about. In the old days, the philosophy behind female designs was taking a male design and add feminine features to them like eyelashes, women's clothing, or makeup so it is clear to audiences it's the same type of character, in this case a train, but it's a train different to the males. And the comparison between Mickey and Minnie might be on point. As a way of cutting corners with their budget, Daisy would share the same facial masks and same chassis with another character, Boko. This is why at the end of Season 2, when they showcase all the new characters, the only one missing was Daisy, because it was impossible to feature these characters in a scene together. But thankfully, there were no other stories that required Daisy and Boko to share an episode together. I said Boko, not his brother D5705. Pay attention. But you know what? Right before these talk show hosts celebrate the inclusion of their political views in the show, they say this.
The Fat Controller seemed a dangerous name in politically correct America, so he became Sir Topham Hatt.
I choose you.
In 1994, Shining Time Station was cancelled, and Mr. Sigelkow was out of the picture. The Thomas crew could have respected Sigelkow's criticisms of Daisy, essentially warning them she would not be well received by female fans or mothers viewing the show to their children. Instead, they adapted Chapter 3 from Branchline Engines that was not featured in Season 2, finally completing Daisy's story from the books. That same year, another Metro Camel unit was given the same name after the Railway series character herself. R.I.P. You know how people say women are as delicate as a flower? This bloke was more delicate than a bloody dandelion. What I see here is a case similar to what happened with Gina Carano. For those that don't know, Gina was a rising star appearing in movies such as Fast and Furious 6, Deadpool, and Terror on the Prairie. But her most prominent role would be in a little show called The Mandalorian. Gina Carano was fired from Lucasfilm for allegedly posting anti-Semitic tweets explaining, "Denigrating people based on their culture and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable." In great irony, the Jewish community did not find those tweets offensive. In fact, they appeared to side with Gina. It's a modern case of someone being offended for someone else, pretending to be upset for an imaginative audience and lessening the integrity of actual offenses. These types of people need to mind their own beeswax and address real problems a real audience has a real issue with. At the time of recording, Gina has filed a lawsuit for wrongful termination and a district judge has granted the case to move forward for June 12, 2025. Unironically, it's about to become the best Star Wars battle under Disney's ownership. Suspiciously, her male co-worker got to keep his job despite posting relatively similar tweets that Gina was sharing. Perhaps they should have been more inclusive. Despite this comeback, this would be Daisy's last major role for the rest of the model era. Her only appearance afterwards was in 2005's Calling All Engines, where she is seen standing by her Diesel family in a standoff against the steam engines. I want to give credit to a Junction Malfunction who pointed this out, and yes, he did post a series of images in his tweet. I tried refreshing the page, I tried different computers, but Twitter is gonna Twitter. Daisy's only original story in the model era was warming up to Toby in the special. She has no dialogue, but you can tell these two finally got along and learned to work together. It's fitting of all characters it would be Toby. Aside from nearly identical jobs, the two did have a rivalry going on. It's nice to see a resolution in their dynamic. Why many fans have overlooked this minor plot detail is because it's part of the learning segments that have notoriously crippled the special. As many of them are easily skippable, they're also skipping out something significant in Daisy's character growth. But for many fans, this was presumably the last time we would ever see her. It would seem Rick Siggelkow lost the battle, but won the war. I don't think Daisy's absence after this was a result of angry emails, considering how little she played into the plot. It's more or less Hit's terrible handling of side characters who were cast aside for the next batch of one-off characters. But as we are talking about the Hit era, it may be a good thing. The Writer's Bible is a stuff of infamy, many character descriptions are horribly inaccurate, and Daisy's bio is no exception. Are you ready? Self-centered, she doesn't like smelly engine sheds, refuses to pull trucks, and is indifferent to all the engines. She is beholden to her driver and engineer, and fiercely loyal to both of them.
Go on, Daisy, said her driver. He's harmless. Yes, you know he's harmless, and I know he's harmless. But does he know?
Do they expect me to pull that?
Surely, said her driver, you can pull one van.
I won't!
Before anyone gives this description a clap and a half and says, "Well, I got most of her right," it turns out engineers and fitters are not the same type of people. They undergo different training and study different topics. In layman's language, an engineer is a tradesman and a fitter is a designer. Similar, but not the same. Remember in my last Thomas topic I made fun of the English language, how it's in a state of poverty? This is one of many reasons why I did that. How can someone find the meaning of life if they can't define life? On that note, what does it mean to be a strong character? Is it their screen time? Is it their dialogue? Is it their redemption? Is their quality matched by purpose? Whatever it may be, Daisy's relevance had seemingly met its end following the anniversary special, and Sodor's first diesel rail car had become indisposed. The CGI series would see the return of many characters, but none of them would make an impact like Daisy. 10 years after her last appearance, Daisy would become one of the most crucial components in the later seasons. It's shocking, remarkable, unbelievable, influential. Daisy would become relevant to the show in ways no one would expect. Her first CGI appearance comes from... well, what do you know? The next anniversary special! At the end of Lost Treasure, Daisy emerges from out of the blue as one of the main engines running the newly constructed branch line between Alsborough and Harwick. Pity she only shows up at the end of the special, but season 20? This was Daisy's season. Season 20 has gone down as the best CGI season of all time, with Daisy playing a large role. Let's just say she's been off on the mainland during her absence, but the new branch line requests her presence on Sodor once again. Wait, do you think that title was hinting at Diamonds and Gold? Or someone else? The other engine working alongside Daisy is Ryan, another character introduced in Legend of the Lost Treasure. Now Ryan wasn't that special in the movie. He fell into the typical trope of a new engine Thomas is jealous of, afraid of being outshone, and oh come on, he even pulls Annie and Clarabelle, how cliché can you get? These types of characters are often formulaic with no real identity of their own. They're friendly, misunderstood, but season 20 made Ryan the best of the bunch. He's a pushover, someone who wants to help but has a hard time declining requests. And building out Daisy's character traits being a lazy engine makes for a perfect adversary to Ryan's cooperative nature. She knows Ryan can be taken advantage of, which is someone Daisy has always wanted. This is very faithful to the devious Diesel. It's like the old saying, a hero is only as good as a villain. You need opposing sides to be committed to their beliefs, so when their conflict reaches a climax, it makes the dynamic all the more satisfactory. Now, yes, it is a Fat Controller who steps up for Ryan, but I think Ryan learned a hard lesson himself by the end.
It's good to help a friend, Ryan, but your friends should help you too.
Aided by the fact they never retconned this character growth, it was this story that made fans finally appreciate the character. In the episode Missing Breakdown Train, Judy and Jerome, who had been on Sodor since the beginning, had become obsolete after Rocky was introduced. Why need two cranes when you can have the one big crane? But once Daisy crashes for the first time ever, Judy and Jerome are relocated to the new branch line to occupy the east side of Sodor when there is an emergency. Daisy is so pivotal here. Not only was given a new purpose herself, but fleshes out several others. Even when the new branch line had finished construction, it was still being developed. This might be the best example of world building in the CGI era. Everything is interconnected, not randomly thrown together. But it doesn't stop here. This season also marks the first time Daisy passed the Bechdel test. For those that don't know, this test, named after American cartoonist Alison Bechdel, created in 1985, it has been adopted as an exercise into the representation of female diversity as long as they pass the following 3 steps. A. Are there at least 2? B. Do they talk to each other? C. Something other than a man. That episode goes to Railcar and the Coaches. The story revolves around Daisy talking down to Annie and Clarabelle, how she could do everything they can on her own. But in typical Audrey fashion, karma strikes. With her popularity rapidly growing among Thomas's passengers, the Fat Controller informs Daisy she will be taking Annie and Clarabelle to handle the growing numbers. The 2 coaches play a trick on Daisy, pretending to hear rattling, creaking, rusty springs, giving Daisy the impression she is falling apart. In their first interaction, Thomas chuffs in to tell Daisy off. Okay, she doesn't pass the test here, but when Daisy returns at the end of the day, and later when she takes the 2 coaches out, there is no mention of Thomas, the Fat Controller, or any other male. It's 2 females taking revenge on another female who belittled them, talking so rude they are subjugating Daisy into thinking she was in a crisis. I mean, no one ever said it had to be a friendly conversation. The reason Daisy works so well in CGI is she isn't replacing anyone. A new location requires new characters, or repurpose the old ones they are given a new meaning. There are many other reasons Season 20 is a standout in the CGI era, but much to our delight, there was still more Daisy on the way! Now I haven't talked about her music yet, so let's talk about it. I am personally not a fan of Chris Renshaw's style for the show. He seems to go for reactionary music rather than musical compositions. He did give some characters a new original score, like Daisy. Her theme in the CGI era sounds like a pleasant seaside trip, which is fitting given Daisy's location. Meanwhile, her original music theme was inspired by the stripper? I think we found the real issue Ricky had with the character. Kids shows used to be so lewd, but somehow better. Season 21 was the last genuine season of Thomas and Friends before the Blubber Makeover. This season would grant the Diesel Railcar an additional 3 episodes. Daisy's Perfect Christmas? Alright. A Most Singular Engine? Lot of fun. But a most notable one this season is Springtime for Diesel. This is the episode where the show's iconic villain goes through a drastic character shift, turning over a new leaf and becoming a good guy. Wait a minute, is this a joke? Daisy, the snooty, sassy, lazy railcar, is the one to develop the dodgy, dastardly, devilish Diesel into a good guy? What? Diesel had hit a low point around this time. He doesn't care about the Diesel revolution anymore. Now he goes after his brethren, or sistren, causing everyone on Sodor to despise him.
You give Diesels a bad name!
In this episode, Diesel bumps Daisy so hard it damages her springs, and due to her unfamiliar design, the workmen could not figure out how to fix her. Rumors began to spread Daisy is going to be scrapped. Not sent away, none of that watered down dialogue to be safe for kids.
Luke did something very bad. He thinks that if anyone finds him, he will be sent away from Sodor.
Dan and Dart say she may have to be scrapped.
They straight up say Daisy is on the brink of death. Diesel refuses to admit it was his fault, but one night he goes up to Daisy and reveals his softer side, apologizing for his violence. He leaves the Diesel works accepting Daisy might not want to be his friend. New Springs arrives soon after, and Daisy was back in working order. However, Diesel oils in to check on her, and we get this.
I don't like being bumped. No one does. If you want to make friends, Diesel, you need to change your ways.
When is Daisy the one to give a lecture? Is this character development? In the CGI era?
Well, gosh,
Adhering to Diesel's wishes, Daisy tells him she would like to be friends with him, but he needs to pull his act together and change his ways. How delightful. A villainous character like Daisy is the one to show our darkest villain the light. The next time they meet, there are signs Diesel is making an improvement. Instead of ramming into her, he gives her a friendly surprise. Isn't it shocking these two characters never interacted before? Not in the books, not in the model era. This is on par with Hunt for Truck for me. An episode about classic characters who have a potential for excellent banter and developing their characters in ways that should have occurred long ago. Many consider the following episode, A Most Singular Engine, to take place before Springtime for Diesel. And I am part of that crowd too. In order for a character to like another, you expect them to have a bit of history, which prior to Springtime for Diesel, they did not. The way a most singular engine starts is Diesel believing he and Daisy could improve a new branch line if they work together, but Daisy rejects his offer. Rather rudely too.
I'm certainly not the same kind of Diesel as you are.
What follows is Diesel seeking revenge on Daisy, believing she is much too unique for the common shunter. He finds Harvey, who is also unique in his own right, and Diesel decides to tell Phibbs what Daisy thinks of him, and what he thinks of her, to get the two distinctive engines to fight over their specialities. Later, some crates fall off a lorry, blocking the crossing, when the engines finally meet. But it doesn't take long for Daisy to realize Harvey is her best hope to pick up the passengers on time. As much as I enjoy Ryan and Daisy, I do think the ending is forced where Daisy suddenly calls Ryan a friend? Singular Engine, however, feels more natural, given how urgent her situation is. And there is an aftermath here, allowing their friendship to have more screen time. After Diesel fails to get back at the rail car, and embarrasses himself by falling into the ocean, you could say Daisy sees a funny side to Diesel, as they are seen laughing together at the end.
Honestly.
It may be a stretch, but perhaps this is why she is willing to share a friendship with Diesel, and since this episode doesn't resolve their dynamic like an apology from Diesel, that does give him wiggle room to hold a grudge against Daisy after this episode, which also explains how he's at breaking point. Following season 21, Daisy was relegated to cameo roles. They don't do her any favors, but her brief appearances don't ruin her character either. It's one thing to develop a singular character, it's a whole other task to make said character develop others. Daisy represents a lot of things. Diesels, sloth, world building, and characters living up to their full potential. But, is Daisy a representative of females? I don't think that's fair. This path of logic would imply Thomas represents all males, and that is simply untrue. The problem is Daisy was the first female engine in a world of male engines, and being the only one of her kind in her season debut, there was a bigger responsibility in her portrayal. So to present her as antagonistic may have been the crux of the issue all along. Over the years, Soda would see an influx of female characters, and it's through their existence female engines are shown to have a variety of personalities from the kind, the chipper, the excited, and the bland.
I'm a lady! I'm too ladylike for extreme sports!
There is a reason fans hold this character in high regard. She has a string of negatives that culminated to one of the most unusual positives. There was a goal to her, a reason for her existence. She was written with complexity that brought originality. Other fans have described her as a product of the time, but I say she has aged gracefully. Her episodes may not have aired on Shining Time Station, but they did make it onto VHS tapes, so at least American fans didn't miss out on the character. And despite how harsh I may sound towards Rick Sicklecow, I don't think he was a bad producer. Once upon a time it was believed the American market wasn't interested in the British little engine. And hey, knowing this was going to be the official look for Thomas the Tank Engine, I don't think anyone could have been ready. Rick helped bring exposure to the Railway series, and where there's exposure, there's an audience. Rick's contribution did help Thomas tremendously, but there was that one serious misjudgment. Had Rick not made such a fuss over Daisy to be excommunicado from the show, they may not have need to worry about forcing female representation into the series. My advice is, read the room. Consolidate with others if they do take offense to what you are distributing, especially with the people you are speaking for. As the show continued to push for more female inclusion, many of them failed to be as influential as Daisy. Emily received her own coaches, a new route all to herself, and I'd like to believe she became the best example of a character naturally regressing. But as for the others, none of them would be as impactful as Sodor's iconic rail car. Daisy is, and will always will be, the first memorable, relatable, excellently written, fair dinkum, velachansvena, strong, female character in Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends.
Merci beaucoup.
And that is going to be the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully you learned something new today. I have a few shoutouts to give, including Delmar, who helped out with some of the audio, NWR Chris on Twitter, who composed the Thomas remix of Stayed Gone from Has Been Hotel, Sudry and Afro for his composition of Daisy's original theme and allowing me to upload my edited version, and a huge thank you to Unlucky Tug, who gave me permission to bring this project to life. I checked with him if it was okay in case his Daisy video was coming up soon, and he gave me the go-ahead to produce my take on the character. Thank you, all of you, and thank you my dear watchers for supporting me. What do you guys think of Daisy? Is she your favourite female engine? Do you think she is a villain, or falls into a morally grey area? If you are a woman yourself, what do you think of the character? Let me know in the comments below, like, share, subscribe, support me on Patreon. And until next time, take care, mates!